So let's make this more flexible. So here's the problem. I've got my toggle on and toggle off, but then the toggle button is nested in this div. So what I'm actually doing is passing props down to the div and not the toggle button. And things are working out okay because I'm not going to pass any props to a child that has a type of string. So that's why we're not getting any warnings in the console. But I do want to pass that prop down to its child. And who knows how deep down the tree that's going to go. So I don't want to traverse it. So I'm going to just change this entirely. So I'm going to grab this object and we'll get rid of all of this, and I'm just going to call this my value for right now, my value that I want to pass down to all of the children, and I'm going to share this through context. So we're going to say toggle context equals react create context, and then I'm going to take this toggle context and use its provider in my toggle. So I'll say toggle context provider, and we'll forward along the children, and then as our value we'll pass this value. So I'll just copy this, paste it in directly there, and great, there we go. So now the toggle is providing the props through this value, and we just need to consume that using our own use toggle hook, which is simply going to return react use context toggle context, and now we have access to the context for all of these. So instead of getting on from props, we're going to continue to get children from props, but we're going to get on from use toggle. All right, sweet. We'll do the same thing for this one. We won't get it from props anymore. We'll just get it from use toggle, and that one as well. And then for this one, we're going to get both the on and the toggle from our use toggle. So const on and toggle, use toggle, and there we go. And then we'll just forward along all the props. All right, we save that, and here we go. Let's make sure it works. Ta-da! Woohoo! Sweet glory. All right, so now we are still implicitly sharing state between this toggle component and all of its compound component companions, but we are doing so in a way that doesn't really care about the depth of the tree. And this is probably the most important use case for context, where we can share this implicit state for components that we expose to people for their use without them having to worry about the state that's being managed to make these things work together. So in review, what we did here was instead of returning a react children.map of all the children and forwarding along the props by making clones of those children, instead we created a toggle context, and then we rendered the provider with the value of those things that we wanted to provide to those children. And then in each of the children, we consumed that context here so we can have access to that implicit state. Now, a common question that I get here is, well, okay, so should I use the children map function ability or should I use the context functionality? And what I say is you can absolutely use the context version all the time, but using the children map functionality might be useful if you only care about direct descendants. And there are definitely use cases for that where you just want to enforce the fact that it only makes sense to have this be a descendant of that. And so you don't really care to share things through context because that relationship is an important part of the API. So there are use cases for both of these methods.